Yeah, good to go? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. I think the title is self-explanatory, so bringing Web3 down to earth. It's also a little bit about use cases that make sense, and knowing that in the audience maybe there's a bit of a disparity, and some people are very advanced in blockchain, crypto, Web3, however you want to name it, and some beginners. So we're gonna take it easy from the beginning. But yeah, if you can take away one good thing from this, would be some use cases that make you think and understand, what this Web3 thing might be going, which is very hard to get to wrap your head around, actually. Mm-hmm. So, quick round of intros. Alejandro Acuña, head of strategy and growth at Crossmint. You can think of it as the Stripe for NFTs. We have Carlos Bor, co-founder of Zenith Finance, a man that loves generating value from data, who's been working and created 2 AI data companies. And yeah, he's also a Kaggle competitor expert, top 1.5% in the world. So, and here we have Paloma Castellano, director at Waira in Madrid, an open innovation hub. She's an expert in corporate venture and open innovation. They've invested in over 80 companies. They have 18 exits so far, and they're a very important and good player in the startup ecosystem here in Spain. So yeah, so before we actually get into it a little bit, to frame the conversation and maybe wrap your head around these concepts, maybe talk about a couple of mental models to get everyone in the audience located. Okay, so maybe the first one is one that's been talked about a lot. It's called read, write, own. Okay, so if you think about the history of the internet, roughly 1990 to 2005, the static web, you can think about it as a Wikipedia with static pages. What you could do is basically democratize access to information, sending information from A to B. Okay, Web 2 is roughly 2005 to 2020. Let's define it loosely that way, which is read, write. So the ability for you to actually interact with some of these pages, share data. The data can be processed behind. And both of these phases of internet, Web 1 and Web 2, had the problem, let's call it the original sin, that didn't have economic incentives baked into this. Okay, so what that meant is that some of the business models that came around from it resulted in primarily exploiting data from users that were participating in these networks, and some of the big companies that we all know emerged from there. So, in Web 3, you can think about it as read, write, own. Okay, so taking care of this original sin, baking in economic incentives into this layer of new infrastructure so that you can build on top of applications that democratize the ownership of some of these applications that have been on top. So that's the first mental model, read, write, own. Think about it this way. The second one is, when people think about a definition of Web3, I think it's actually very hard to come up with one. It was also very hard to come up with one right in the era of the internet. Okay, so this is the second mental model. Think about, there's actually a distinction between the internet and the web. And there's a distinction between blockchain and Web3. So the internet itself was the base layer, the infrastructure of the house that you can build upon, which was the web. So stuff that was being built is primarily the protocols, HTTP, TCP, IP, and so on, right? And the web was actually what was built on top of. A cultural movement driven a lot by the open source movement in its inception, and the development of apps that were built on top of, okay? And then you have JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and so on, right? And when you think about Web3, think about it the same way. You have blockchain, which you can think of as a computer in the sky, some sort of public good that you can see, you can interact with. And then you have Web3, right? Building, when you think about blockchain, think about the protocol, the pipes, right? Like the layer 1 protocols that you've all heard of, that have been in the media, that are slightly obscure to understand. They're nothing else than the infrastructure of the house that we're building upon, which is this Web3 wave. And much like the Web 2 wave, that the big use cases were almost impossible to predict, right? There's a lot of skeuomorphism, people trying to replicate real-world stuff into this internet era, right? So I think about a newspaper, so building a digital newspaper. The big players that emerged were very hard to predict. So the Instagrams, the Ubers, the Facebook, the network effects, all of this stuff was only understood retroactively. So with Web3, we're sort of in that phase, okay? So with that said, think about cycles, okay? Last mental model. Infrastructure cycle, app cycle, infrastructure cycle, app cycle. And so the past 5 years or so, arguably, we've been in an infrastructure cycle, and we're starting to see applications. But these applications, a lot of people try to project and understand or think about the past and trying to think this is the future, but it's very hard to know what the use cases are going to come about. So today we have people here actually working on some of the applications and infrastructure in this third web. Sorry for the long, okay? And so, yeah, so let's start with the questions. Alejandro, so how did you first get interested in Web3?
Yeah, so Web3 came sort of naturally to me because I used to work in traditional finance. I actually see that Web3 is the intersection of personal ownership, decentralized finance. You have everything in there. So it really resonates with me, like you can actually own what you use, and you actually become a stakeholder of the products you use, and not only you can be a user or a shareholder, but now you can become a stakeholder. So it came naturally to me.
Mm-hmm. So from my side, it's a bit funnier. I was in the data industry, very deep focus, and suddenly a very close friend come nearby and said, hey, Carlos, I bought some crypto NFT in a gaming crypto game, Pokemon lookalike called Axie Infinity. I rented to somebody in the Philippines by Reddit, and I paid them via wallets, and I was like, I didn't get anything out of this sentence. And something grasped me, and we started studying. We created a gaming guild, over 24,000 Discord users. And yeah, and this is how I started in Web3.
Not bad, not bad. Well, from our side, from Telefónica, I think that we started in Web3 a long time ago. In fact, we were one of the first companies that started trying to give ownership of the data to the users. So it was one of our claims years ago, and we have been working in this line of letting the user control what they are doing. So we have been investing a lot in the tokenization of our network so that we can incentivize users using tokens to do actions that are good for the management of the network. So we have been experimenting a long time. We have established a blockchain group. It was like, I think it was 5-6 years ago, that are already selling and building on top of the blockchains services that are useful for users. But what I would say that gives gets you the grabs to grab the importance that Web3 and Metaverse have for Telefónica is that we have recently established a chief Metaverse office in Telefónica, so that because we were doing a lot of things, so it was just trying to get them aligned and getting them to the goal that we want.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about some of these use cases, no, that you've decided to work on this new platform, let's call it. So tell us about Crossmin.
So basically, we don't have a use case per se because we are an infrastructure provider. Basically, we facilitate buying an NFT with just a credit card and an email. You don't have to have crypto before. You don't have to own a wallet. Just a credit card and an email, and you can instantly purchase the NFT in 30 seconds. So we remove all the friction, and we create a seamless process so that we can facilitate others building, because actually what we feel is the most painful point right now on Web3 is the onboarding and making the access to the non-tech-savvy people and not crypto-native people easy. So I would say that. And then I would say we facilitate a lot of different use cases. Like you can actually create loyalty programs with NFTs, so you empower the users when they don't want to actually interact with your company anymore. They can sell their loyalty program to somebody else on the other end of the world. Ticketing for the same purpose. Anything you can imagine that actually proves ownership in the physical world, you can actually turn that into an NFT, issue it, and then magic happens because you can program over the smart contract, and you can pretty much build anything you want. So as you said, some of the use cases and business verticals, we don't really know them yet because they're happening.
A great product, right, Crossmin? So
yeah, sorry for the product placement.
No, that's what we are here. From our side, from Zenith Finance, we help DeFi protocols and crypto funds to manage their risk and efficient capital allocation. We have a realistic simulation software with on-chain and off-chain data, so they can have the best parameters for their protocol or for their investments. Let me give you an example. I don't know how much of you are very into DeFi, but imagine a DeFi protocol as a place where a lot of people borrow and lend money. So there are some values of which coins do you accept, which is the collateralization ratio that I want to give to the users, that somebody has to decide and change over time. It's important that DeFi protocols don't go bankrupt like we saw in the past months with Terra. So what we do is we assess in a recurrent way DeFi protocols so they can be healthy for the users and you have a good ratio risk-reward for the lenders and borrowers.
Awesome. Paloma, tell us a bit about your Web3 portfolio companies now, in the spirit also in like use cases that you've seen or companies that are in your portfolio.
Okay. So, well, one of the companies in our portfolio, we are proud investors of Crossmint, and I think it's a very nice sample of the kind of companies that we love to invest in. Well, if you think about NFTs, it's roughly like 360,000 people that are really owners of NFTs. So this is not a massive market, not at all. So I love the concept of building a bridge between this Web3 area and these Web2 concepts. And I think Crossmint is a great example of the kind of things that we love to invest. They are translating this concept such as wallet or exchange into concepts that everybody knows, such as email address and credit card. So that's the kind of companies that we love to invest because I think that we have to lower the barriers. So some of the other areas that we are very active on. So for example, we have a company here in Valencia that they're leading the market of voice modulation for gamers. They create voices for gamers. And well, your voice in a virtual environment is an asset. It's something that I own and I don't want it to be faked. So this is something that they are working on, building NFTs on top of and building the standard for the metaverse so that you can migrate your voice from one place to another. So I believe those kind of companies are the ones that we like to invest.
That's awesome. I think Carlos also has experimented in the NFT space. I think NFTs at the moment are a great place to at least pay attention to, and I think despite the amount of overhype that there may be in any market, like you have through history, and the internet is no exception to this, you must pay attention to it because maybe Alex, you can tell us a little bit about like what excites you the most about NFTs. Like, where's the next frontier? No, because one of the things that people undervalue is like I think on Ethereum alone, 4 billion in 2021 has been paid out to artists, which is historically a segment of the population that are struggling to make any sort of returns, or have an economic model that works for them. If you look at Spotify, for example, there is around 8 million music artists on Spotify, and yet like only 14,000 out of 8 million make 50K a year or more. No? So like when you have a paradigm shift that is in its inception, like NFTs today for artists, although there's many other verticals, like I think that's one that's really cool. But what about you? Like, where do you think this is going? Like, where do you think is the next thing, the frontier?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm really excited about the music industry, the movie industry for the very same reason. You can actually give the ownership since the very beginning to the creator, so you can get rid of the middleman, and you can create so many derivatives of the actual initial product, which is the NFT, and you can make things like such as making the royalties flow back to the owner of the NFT, which is the artist, and then you can fractionalize those NFTs and raise capital through that way. Then you can stack those NFTs on a DeFi protocol and get yield on them. You can actually then go and get borrowing and get money using that as collateral. So the possibilities when you tokenize something are infinite, I believe.
That's great because it goes back to our original point of the internet's original sin, which is programming economic incentives in software, right? So, and this ties back to DeFi, Like, same question for you. Where do you think this is going forward? Like, where's the next frontier, right? We've seen Olympus DAO, we've seen algorithmic stablecoins, we've seen a lot of innovation in the space. There's booms, there's busts, but like, what excites you at the moment?
Well, the thing that excites me the most is the onboarding of billions of people that doesn't have access to the financial industry as we know it, right? There are 4 billion people that have very low access and 1 billion who don't have access to the financial industry, but most of them, they have a mobile phone and they can connect it to the financial system. So for me, one of the next frontiers that will create new things that we don't understand yet will be from the mass adoption. I think that will came from the GameFi NFTs that will bring a lot of users to the place, and later what you can do with the NFTs, as you were mentioning, staking, yield, and they will move some from an NFT side, maybe for a DeFi side. Another thing that excites me, and it's why we're building Zenith Finance, is to de-risking DeFi. I think there are a lot of risks. Okay, you can audit on a smart contract, but how this will behave in an open economy, how you handle the risk of your protocols to not ending up in a death spiral. This is something that really, really interests us.
And it's important precisely because some of the stuff that one of your companies in your portfolio, I believe, something I think is close to your heart also, which is sending remittances, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a $680 billion market a year, which has on average 6% intermediary costs. And that's on the low end because in some parts of the world, the intermediation is savage. Like the costs, people get robbed when they're sending their money abroad. The people are picking up their money. They get robbed at the entry and controlled by mafias, all sorts of crazy stuff. Not to mention that there's 1.7 billion people unbanked in the world, right, that don't necessarily have access to transfers. And if anyone asks you what Web3 killer app has been, which is a peer-to-peer decentralized network payments networks, right? Yep. So tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, we invested a couple of years ago in a company that is not purely Web3, but they are evolving into that. Well, remittance is a great problem. In non-bancarized, well, people when they do not have bank accounts, the thing is that they do have mobile phones. So remittance, they are solving that problem using top-ups. Mobile top-ups, because, well, here in Europe, you cannot pay, let's say, a loaf of bread using your mobile phone, but you can do that in Africa, in Southern, in South America, and in Asia. So what they are doing is that they are enabling everyone to integrate top-ups directly in any app. And this that may sound like very strange, well, this is enabling some small companies such as TikTok to pay to creators in Africa using their top-up, their prepaid phones. And well, this is creating a great economy, and they are also building bridges, and this is always about building bridges between crypto and also the mobile phones, because you can have crypto, but you cannot buy a loaf of bread using crypto. But you can migrate that into your prepaid phone and pay that. So this is the kind of things that really get massive into the market. Yeah. For sure.
Awesome. I know we only have 2 minutes left, and we could talk about this stuff forever. But maybe Carlos, tell us a little bit about Fractal and the use case around Fractal, and maybe gaming, DeFi, gaming, play to earn, and all this good stuff, and how you got involved as well. We've been building a little model there, which was awesome.
Yeah, so we get involved trying to figure out what's happening there. So I'm a gamer. I love playing video games. I'm praying for a good video game in the DeFi, in the crypto space, and yeah, the opportunities that GameFi gave to other people around the world to earn for a living. We have all this Axie Infinity thing. It was incredible, and I think it's the door for the NFT mass adoption right now.
Awesome. Okay, we have 1 minute left, so I'm just going to go through a quick round. Okay, so what to look out for managing risk, right? So like any innovation wave, there's lots of pitfalls, like bear traps all over the place. You need to know what to look at. So like maybe quick round, like Alex, what do you think? Like what's something you would caution people to look out?
Yeah, I would say you should do your own research first. There is a lot of people selling NFTs right now. There is a lot of speculation attached to that. I think in the next 1 year or so, we're going to see a movement in the next 2 years to a more mature market, and it's going to be different. But for now, NFTs are a great technology, but definitely be careful with what you buy.
Not NFA, not financial advice. No, I don't trust anon founders right now. Low accountability. White papers, everyone puts whatever they think they will be their roadmap, but ended something else. And the past experience of the founders, the community, and the if it's NFT community is one thing, if it's a protocol that the people is building on top of that, so that's and what it's building on top of that makes sense. So that's the thing we're looking for.
We're out of time. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.